Welcome back. All right, so a topic that I want to discuss as we're in between the second and third period between the Calgary Flames and the Carolina Hurricanes. I do intend to do a review of that game by itself. I do look at the scheduling around the rest of the night, though, and think, I don't know when I'm going to have the time, but I'll try. So, a lot of talk about comebacks, and I think there are reasons for these comebacks. I want to say that it seemed to have started with teams like Florida a couple years ago and their comebacks. And I think teams learn. I think teams look and they say, all right, so what did they do? And I think that's one of the things that definitely causes a pattern to form. This is a league where you end up with a lot of copycats. So if a team wins the Stanley Cup playing the trap, you're going to have a bunch of teams next year playing the trap. If you have a team that scores a ton of goals, they have a lot of really exciting offense, and maybe their goaltending might be a little bit mediocre, you're going to see other teams trying to emulate that, right? If that wins the Stanley Cup, well, we might as well give it a shot. It worked for them. There are times where it goes too far. I remember the Canucks after the 2011 Stanley Cup final where they kind of got manhandled by the Bruins. They decided to get bigger and tougher, which made it easier for them to play against the Bruins, but it seemed to decrease their success against the rest of the league. So the first thing that I wanted to, and there were just 6 points I wanted to sort of tack off here, is momentum swings. One big difference with hockey now compared to, I would say, 5 years ago is the huge swings in momentum. Everything's going great. You've outshot the other team 10-0 in the last 5 minutes. All of a sudden, the puck goes the other way. It's in the net. And then all of a sudden, they get 10 shots in a row. And then it can go the other way. And so the huge swings in momentum, as much fun as it is for us as fans watching it, I would imagine for the players and for the coaches, it can be really nerve-wracking, right? That your team is up, everything's going well, your lines are rotating really nicely, and then all of a sudden, everything's falling apart. And then you ask yourself, I would think, do I make big changes here? Do I need to make big changes? Should I just, hope they come through this and they're fine? A lot of questions that I would imagine for a coach cause a few extra gray hairs. Also, it is early in the season. The comebacks are usually earlier in the season and they will die down a bit as teams get better. I think that comes with familiarity. So early in the season, you've got probably some new players and some unfamiliarity on the ice. I know with goaltenders, it might be tough to get a read on your defenseman and vice versa. Defenseman, it might be a new goaltender. Maybe you don't get a read on how he plays the puck. Goaltender learns when to come out, when to play it as the season goes along. And you see fewer of the errors that can lead to these big swings in momentum, right? So I think that's part of it. I also think that players' attitudes are a little different. So back in the past, you might get, a 2-goal deficit and you're like, well, that's it. And you could just see like their whole physical makeup. They're just, oh, we're done. And it was frustrating to watch that too. In that you think to yourself, look, there's 25 minutes left in this game. It's still in the second period. Why are you guys acting like it's over? It's only a 2-goal lead. But it was easier for teams to hold those 2-goal leads as well because of the way the game was being played. So another part of the huge comebacks is the fact that scoring is up. So because scoring is up and there's more scoring opportunities that are being had, we're seeing save percentages drop. And I think part of that too might be the quality of shots has gone up. Now, I haven't seen all the stats to tell me that that's what's happening, but it stands to reason. It's not like goaltending suddenly got nerfed. It's not like we have the sliders like you have in NHL 23 to just go, oh, goalies were good, and then, I don't know, Bettman pulled the sliders, and now they're all nerfed. So that's not a thing. But the higher goal scoring means if you're down 2-0, it doesn't feel as insurmountable as it did, say, again, 5 years ago, 10 years ago especially. During the dead puck era, if a game was 2-0, it was over. It was very rare to see any kinds of big comebacks, and it could be tough to watch a full 60-minute game. I was pretty regularly turning a game off after the first or the second period, and it was a rarity that I would find out after, what, they came back and won? Yeah. They lost that lead? No. That generally did not happen, not like it does now. So I think the attitude's probably in line with the fact that the scoring has been up around the league, plays a large role in it. And then there's the emphasis on skill, which is related to six. So all of these things are related to each other to give you the picture. So, again, going back to decades earlier, you had your third line was your shutdown line, and your fourth line was pretty beefy. They might only get 8 minutes per game. There was usually at least one guy who knew how to drop the gloves, and that was kind of what he was known for. He might only get 4 or 5 minutes a game. And so what's happened now is we usually, with the 4-line setup we have, have teams that are skilled from top to bottom, right? Even your fourth line can be fast now. Even your fourth line can get that turnover and get that big emotional goal, which was unheard of all those years ago. Which comes back to the fact that you do get those momentum swings. Any line can cause that momentum swing, even the fourth line. So, and again, back in the day, being as old as I am, the fourth line was basically, these are the guys who are plugged in there. That's their role, fourth line. It was a huge downgrade, and guys would get upset about fourth line time. I mean, I imagine they still do, but it's not the same. The fourth line still gets good ice time, depending on the team, but usually it will. And some of the best lines in hockey, in terms of lines that stay together for a long time, like you look at the Islanders, you look at the identity line. Now, Vegas has an identity line. There are teams that are copying the identity line template because it works. But it's not a line that is without skill. It is not a line that can't skate. Skating is so important now. Whenever we get into prospects and you look at the first rounders and then you look at the guys outside the first round, what's the biggest difference? Skating. You'll see the guys who are suspect skaters end up dropping into the second round, maybe the third round. We used to see guys who were pretty slow skaters, but they would still get the opportunity because they could score goals. Teams would find ways to cover for the fact that maybe they weren't as fast as their teammates. But now, speed's everything. So it's speed, it's skill, and when you're down 2-0 and you've got fast players who are very skilled, it doesn't feel as daunting as it would have. And then recently, over the last couple of years, there's been the crackdown on cross-checking and slashing, and it's still there. And I know there are people who don't like the way that those penalties are being called. That's a whole other penalty for a whole other time. I thought maybe I'd do something on penalties today, but I thought, no, I already talked about goalie interference yesterday. I want to talk about this today. The crackdown on cross-checks has meant that guys can now stand in front of the net and not get bothered by a defenseman who's just coming and giving him 5 or 6 or 7 of these, and then we get told, well, the penalty was really the 6th cross-check, which is the most ridiculous thing. Now they get called on the first. Not always. Every referee's different. Every referee calls the game differently. It's not the same, again, as it was when I was a kid. You would see the referee, you'd know who it was, and you go, okay, this referee's going to allow everything to go. This referee's not. So if you had Kerry Fraser, you knew what you get. If you had Andy Van Hellemond, you knew what you get. If you had Bill McCreary, like these. And notice I have all those names off the top of my head now. They're all just numbers to me, which is kind of what the NHL had intended when they took the names off the back and they just slap a number on there and that's it. They wanted it to be that the officials were mostly nameless, which I think has worked okay. But the fact they've cracked down on cross-checks, so players can now stand in front unimpeded. Slashes, so now you can skate through and you don't have to worry about the wrap on the hands as much. That, of course, was courtesy of Sidney Crosby lopping off a fingertip for Mark Mathot. A slashing play that was legal at the time. A slashing play that people went, well, yeah, it's a little slash on the hands. These things happen, but it lopped off a fingertip. So definitely has been a change. And when you're not cracking down on those things, it is easier for a team to, bully it to the outside and cross-check and slash and do all of these nefarious things to keep you away from the net and keep you off your game in order to get the win. So I think that what we're seeing with the momentum swings and the comebacks, I think it will let up a little bit as the season goes along. But like today's game between the Rangers and the Edmonton Oilers, it was so ridiculous. That was controlled by the Rangers for large stretches, and then all of a sudden Edmonton just took over. And once they took over, there wasn't really an answer from the New York Rangers, which will bring into question the coaching with the Rangers. It'll bring into question some of the Rangers players and their preparations. But it's just, that's how the game is now. And it does feel like you can't just turn a game off now after 2 periods because you don't really know what's going to happen in that third period, which I think makes for a better product. I think that because of the comebacks, because of all these exciting swings, I think it makes it easier to get new fans into the game. I think it makes it easier to keep new fans in the game. And there are failings the NHL has when it comes to marketing and it comes to growing the game. But I honestly think this change where now comebacks are so prevalent, I think that only helps. Because you don't really want to be a league where, hey, if you're leading after 1, well, game's over. There are teams that are like that, but there are enough comebacks in the NHL now that even with the teams that don't really blow leads in the third, you still think, yeah, so they shouldn't lose this one in the third, but Who knows? And there are always surprises. So I think it makes the product better. I know it makes it more entertaining for me to watch the games and review them, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Are you a fan of all the comebacks, or do you think, I miss the days when, if you had a 2-0 lead after the second period, that game was done. 3-1 after the second period, game is done. That kind of thing. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happen upon this video. And if there's any other reason that you can see why these comebacks are so prevalent, let me know. Let me know what your 7th reason would be, or 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And hey, thanks again for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.